New clues are emerging about the person of interest in the deadly shooting of UnitedHealthcare CEO. A manhunt is underway right now as investigators race to try to retrace the alleged gunman's steps. Former NYPD detective and professor Felipe Rodriguez Jr. joins me now for more on the investigation. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, sir. So I think it's sort of interesting that I can't recall in recent times when we've had so much information that's being shared with the public about a potential murderer, and yet we still don't have a name. We still don't know who that person is. Why is it, with all the cameras that we have in New York City, with all the ways that you can trace people from not just the cameras, but from DNA, for example, that coffee cup that he used, from the shell casings, that we still don't have an arrest in this case?
Well, I get that question quite often right now. So a lot of people say, we have DNA, we have advanced science, artificial intelligence. Why hasn't it been ID'd? Very simple. For you to be in that database and for us to be able to identify you, either you had to have a previous arrest or either some sort of entry or exit out of the country towards an official port, an airport, anything like that. But think about it. You have a lot of individuals that walk around fake IDs, as this gentleman did with a fake New Jersey driver's license. So we really might not even have the real identity at this time. And you can have all the DNA in the world. If you can't match it to a person, it's not very helpful.
Yeah. So we do know that there is potentially a person of interest that the police have narrowed it down to. So what happens then? When a person is named a quote unquote person of interest, what does that mean?
Person of interest means that it's time, we're at that point that we have almost probable cause, and we got to remember there's a lot of different legal levels. So I might think you did it. I might want to be able to question you. I want to see if you were even at the scene. We could ask you a question, were you even there? And then we'd be able to tie it through the wrapper or the water bottle that he left behind. So we're trying to get contradictory statements because not always a person is going to confess. So when a person of interest is basically located, that's kind of our saying, we still a little bit more to get to that level of probable cause to arrest.
So there had been, and social media is not often the real world, but there are people who were speculating that perhaps this individual was a professional, given that he was able to escape as quickly as he did and evade police for as long as he has. But now, as we get a better picture of his movements before and after, it doesn't strike you that this was a professional, right? The fact that he would take his mask down to flirt with somebody at the hostel, thereby allowing himself to be photographed smiling, it doesn't sound like what a professional would do.
I could go from two avenues on this. That little bit was a slip up. Think about it. How many cameras do we have in New York City? And he was able to evade so many of them. Levels of professionalism come in many different, forms. The way he manipulated that firearm when he was discharging it, I'm surprised we haven't discussed that a lot more. That firearm was very unique in nature. So there's a little complexity to this individual. I wouldn't say he's the ultimate assassin, but he's still very competent.
No, that's a good point, Felipe. I did think about that when I saw the video, and we're showing a little bit of it here as a freeze frame. But when that firearm jammed, he was able to rectify that situation very, very quickly. When you saw that portion of the video, what went through your mind?
As a firearms instructor, I said, I wish some students were able to clear that jam at that level of proficiency. Mm-hmm. So while everybody was saying, oh, the gun jammed, the gun did this, a lot of things could happen. And I really don't think the gun jammed. I just think it's a specialized type of weapon, especially with the suppressor that was on it. So the way he cleared that jam, whether he's a trained assassin or not, he was very proficient and he was very, crafted in his skill to get done what he needed to get done that day.
That's really interesting. We also had former commissioner of the NYPD, Rodney Harrison, a deputy commissioner, on our show earlier this week. And I asked him about silencers, how easy they are to get And he said something interesting. He said that actually just having the silencer isn't illegal, but when you put it actually on a weapon, then that becomes illegal. But how does somebody even get a silencer in the state of New York, for example? They must be incredibly, because the only reason you would need one sounds to me like for nefarious reasons.
Yes, once again, and we do have people that say, silencers help protect people's hearings, but that's why you have earmuffs and other sorts of noise control devices. To get a silencer in the state of New York, remember, it's a federal type of possession, so you would have to get, ATF approval, so all sorts of background investigations, paying some sort of fees. So it is a very difficult process. You just can't pick one up in the corner, gun store.
Yeah, really interesting. All right, Felipe Rodriguez, thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Always a pleasure.